People think silence is peace. They think when the house is quiet, when there's no yelling, no bickering, that everything is just fine and dandy. At 87 years old, sitting in this big, empty farmhouse, I can tell you the honest-to-God truth. Silence isn't peace. Silence is a predator. It creeps into your hallways. It hides in your curtains. And slowly, day by day, it eats the memories of the laughter that used to fill these rooms. It swallows up the good mornings, and it devours the good nights. You sit in it, thinking you've won something, but all you've won is a front row seat to your own loneliness. There is a sentence, just 5 little words, plain as day, simple as breathing. But for 40 years, I treated those 5 words like they were poison. I swallowed them down, let them burn in my throat, but I absolutely refused to let them pass my lips. If I had just said those 5 words in the winter of 1974, Frank might still be sitting in that empty chair right across from me. Bless his soul, he waited for them. He practically begged for them with his eyes. And I, stubborn as a mule and proud as a peacock, looked right at him and kept my mouth shut. I'm going to tell you what those words were, but first, you need to understand the fool I used to be. Frank was a good man, the kind of man they just don't make anymore. He smelled like sawdust, Old Spice, and hard work. He had this laugh, heavens to Betsy, it was a beautiful thing. It started deep down in his belly and ended in a little wheeze that made his shoulders shake. He was patient. Lord above, was that man patient? But me? I was raised tough here in Ohio. Raised by folks who survived the Depression and thought yielding an inch meant you were weak. I was sharp as a tack, but I confused being right with being strong. I thought every conversation was a debate, and every debate was a battle I had to win. I couldn't just let a comment slide. If Frank said the sky was blue, I'd find a way to argue it was cornflower. I wore my pride like a suit of armor, not realizing it was suffocating the very man holding me. It started making a mountain out of a molehill over silly, everyday things. The right way to fold the guest towels. The fastest route to the Piggly Wiggly. But I remember the exact day the cracks really started to show. It was the spring of '78. We were out back, putting in a vegetable garden. The sun was warm, the dirt felt good on our hands. We were happy. Frank wanted to plant the tomatoes right alongside the bush beans. He said his granddaddy always did it that way, but I had just read an article in the Farmer's Almanac. I told him, Frank, the almanac says they compete for the nitrogen in the soil. They need to be separated. He just smiled that gentle, crinkly smile and said, Evie, let's just try it my way this once. Oh, I couldn't abide that. I couldn't just let him have his garden. I marched into the house, my boots tracking mud on the linoleum, dug out my gardening encyclopedia, marched right back out, and shoved the open book in his face. Look, I said, tapping the page. Right here in black and white. I'm right. You're wrong. I watched his shoulders drop. I watched the light literally leave his eyes. He didn't yell. He didn't argue back. He just looked at me with this profound sadness, wiped his hands on his overalls, and said, Okay, Evelyn, you're right. And he walked inside. I won the argument. Oh, I felt so victorious. But looking back, that was the very day I started losing my husband. You see, you don't lose a marriage all at once in some fiery explosion. You lose it brick by brick, argument by argument. Every time I corrected him, every time I had to have the last word. I laid another brick. Within a decade, we had built a fortress right in the middle of our living room. We slept in the same bed, but there was an ocean of unspoken resentment between us. We lived in the same house, but we were thousands of miles apart. The dinners got quieter. The television got louder, just to drown out the sound of what we weren't saying. He stopped sharing his thoughts, his dreams, even his silly jokes, because he knew I'd just pick them apart to find the flaw. The cost of my principles was his intimacy. I traded my best friend for a shiny, invisible trophy that said, "Evelyn is right." And let me tell you, sweetheart, that trophy is mighty cold to sleep next to on a winter night. Now, don't go yet. Please. Because the hardest part to confess, the part that wakes me up in a cold sweat at 3 a.m, staring at the ceiling, is what happened the night he finally stopped trying altogether. It was our 40th anniversary. We went to a nice steakhouse out by the highway. He had bought me a beautiful silver locket. He handed it to me across the table, and he looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in years, and said, "Evie, can we just put the swords down? Can we just be soft with each other again?" And my pride, my wicked, stubborn pride, snapped back before my heart could intervene. I told him I didn't know what he was talking about and that he was being overly dramatic. He just nodded slowly. He closed the velvet box, put it in his pocket, and asked for the check. From that night on, we were just polite roommates. The fight was gone. And I learned the hard way that when your partner stops arguing with you, it doesn't mean you've won. It means they've given up. Frank passed away 3 years ago. His heart just gave out. After the funeral, after the neighbors stopped bringing over casseroles and the house got unbearably quiet, I went out to the garage to sort through his workbench. Tucked away in the back, behind a row of rusty wrenches, I found an old, dented coffee tin. Inside was a folded-up piece of newspaper. It was yellowed and brittle. It was a clipping from a local agricultural column, dated August 1980. The headline was about companion planting. It said that in our specific type of dense Ohio clay, planting bush beans and tomatoes together actually enriches the soil and prevents blight. He was right. He had been right all along, and he had found the proof years after our argument. He could have shoved that newspaper in my face. He could have paraded it around the kitchen and said, "I told you so, Evelyn." But he didn't. He hid it in a coffee tin, because to Frank, my feelings and my dignity were more important than his pride. And to me, my pride was more important than his heart. I sat down on that cold concrete garage floor, holding that piece of paper, and I wept until I couldn't draw breath. The utter, devastating futility of it all. The wasted decades. Those 5 words I couldn't bring myself to say in 1974, the ones that could have saved us. You were right. I'm sorry. That's it. 5 words that would have torn that brick wall right down to the foundation. So I am asking you today, pleading with you, look at your own life. Are you fighting a war in your own living room? Are you clutching your pride, desperately needing to be the smartest person in the room, while the person you love slips away into the silence? It is a bitter pill to swallow, but you need to hear it. Do you want to be right, or do you want to be loved? Because you rarely get to be both all the time. If you are holding on to a grudge right now just to prove a point, if you know you need to let your guard down, I want you to go down to the comments right now and type the word soften. Let it be a promise to yourself. Let it be the very first step in tearing down your own wall before you end up drinking your tea in a quiet house like mine.